Uh, Welcome, Tara, to this podcast. Today, we'll learn about your journey and get to know a little bit about you and share it across the rest of the viewers. So, before further ado, let's get started. Tara, can you please help us define like how your childhood was? Where were you born? What was it like growing up? So, if you share some views about that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much for having me here, and hello to everyone who's listening. And thank you so much, Arpit, for connecting and inviting me here. So my name is Tara Leduc, and I am in Northern Canada. In fact, I'm probably further north than anyone you know. I am at 60 degrees north in Yukon in Canada.
Wow.
And for you met me because I am associated with people in Vancouver, Canada, but I was down south for a long time, and only 1.5 years ago, I actually moved back home. And so I'm close to my mother now. She's her next birthday, she will be 90 years old. So
Oh,
it
wow.
was time. It was time to come closer. She's fine, but she's a little bit not fine, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So did you say Yukon is that the coldest part of Canada? That's what I think I hear.
That
Is
is exactly correct. I
oh,
am just beside Alaska.
oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think it's in like mountains time zone. It's not Pacific, isn't it? Your clock showed like 4:30 or something.
Well, it's confusing. We don't change time anymore.
Oh, okay.
So we are Mountain Standard Time and we never change. But
Okay.
anyway, I
Yeah.
am
Oh,
effectively Pacific time right now.
Pacific time right now. Okay, got it.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So that's interesting. So did you grew up there in Yukon itself? And okay.
I
So
did.
how was it like growing up in Yukon? Like, given, and if you can describe, I don't think many of the people might even have heard about Yukon to forget even knowing. But I have seen in couple of like I think videos, etc., that it's super cold, goes to like whatever 60 degrees minus or something. I don't know if I'm talking the right thing or if you can
should
describe
I
it.
should I tell you the lies or should I tell you the truth?
Yeah, both are.
Okay, I will tell you all truth, all truth. I was born here. I grew up in Whitehorse, which is the capital of the Yukon, which is about an hour from where I am right now. And I grew up there, and you know how it is when you're a kid, you just grow up. It
Yeah,
is just normal. But I will tell you that when I was a little girl, I'm born in December, so in the winter I have a lot of energy, even though it's dark. It's just a normal rhythm for me. So
right.
the year that I turned 2, we had a lot of snow that year. And my parents dug a pathway for me in the snow on the inside of the fence so they could just throw me outside. And they would just see the top of my hat as I went round and round and round.
Right. Wow.
Just a little girl with lots of energy.
Absolutely. So, is it like Scandinavian countries where you have like for 6 months there is just like winters and 6 months is like is something like that? Okay.
It is, but it's not quite as stark as you imagine. So
Mhm.
and I'm noticing this more now that I've returned, that I used to live at, I guess, 45 degrees north, and now I live at 60 degrees north. And the difference is our day length changes nearly every day all year.
Oh,
So in the middle of June, on June 21st, on the solstice, we will have close to 24 hours of daylight. I think really it might be dark for 1 hour.
oh wow.
And at the other solstice in December, December 21, it goes the other way. So my main windows, they face exactly south. So the sun would rise maybe at 11 o'clock in the morning, and it sets maybe at 1:30 or 2 o'clock. But here's what else is so different being so far from the equator. Our sunrises and sunsets last a very long time.
Hmm.
So it would be light in the winter, especially, it would be light here for a long time before the sun actually rises. It's very
Wow.
different than being in the tropics.
Right, right,
And
right.
the other thing that you notice, I'm very connected to nature. In the winter, the sun rises not that far from south and it sets not that far from south. And now in the summertime, it actually rises and sets, it seems like almost north. I don't think
Mm,
that's correct, but it's so interesting. I would look out the window at right now, late May.
mm-hmm.
I would look out the window at 11 o'clock at night and I would see a sunset to the north of me. The sun would be down, but the colors would be in the sky looking north.
Wow. That's pretty.
Yeah, wow. I didn't realize when I was a kid, it's just, we have
Normal.
more dark.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, I so back in the day, I used to have a Nokia as my customer, and they
Okay,
were in Oslo, Finland, and
right.
a lot of my team members used to travel and live there, and they used to tell me about like 6 months of like total blackout, 6 months of total like sunlight, and I never traveled, so I just used to hear their stories. So
No, they exaggerate.
yeah,
They exaggerate because in the
right.
winter we still get some sunlight.
Hmm.
Even in Oslo, I don't think they're any further north than I am. So they
Right.
would still see some sun, but you can go further north and have, they call it, um, oh, I've forgotten the term, but
Yeah.
it's sort of like winter night where it is literally dark for days at a time. They would not see the sun.
Will not see the sun. Yeah.
I have never experienced that. And in
Right.
the summer, because we still sleep at night, you
Hmm.
may not see it get dark for quite a long time because if it gets dark for 1 hour and you're asleep, you don't know.
Yeah. So this is
Mhm.
interesting. Well, I have never experienced personally or know anyone who has
Mhm.
experienced this kind of like environment. I'm just thinking that, so I do a lot of travel to India and the
Mhm.
US. I'm on the Pacific coast myself.
Mhm.
And whenever we travel, like at least for 1 week, like when I travel from US to India, my body clock completely like goes haywire. So when I
Mhm.
land in India, I just don't know when I'll fall asleep and when I'll wake up. So technically for 1 week, it takes me time to adjust. And sometimes like
Yes.
when my family was traveling last time, we just went
Mhm.
in like November, December timeframe last year and came
Mhm.
back in early January this year. They took like almost 2 weeks just to adjust to the so basically what would happen is I'll go and by the time I hit like 5:36 p.m. ish, I'll fall asleep like I will be drowsy, like completely drowsy, like completely like no nothing, and I'll just lay on the bed, and then I'll wake up by like 2 a.m., one and a half, 1:30, 2:30, and that's it. So it took me
Mhm.
like almost a week before I would start waking up at 6 and then sleeping at around 9, 10 p.m. in the night. So it took me time. So I'm just trying to understand from your perspective, like how do you like
Mm.
6, 7, 8 hours or 9 hours, or like how do you
Oh,
your sleep
well,
cycle works?
okay. So what you are talking about is jet lag.
Yes.
And that's quite different because your body is used to being on Pacific time. And then you go to, I guess, India Standard Time,
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
And it's such a big change in your night and day switch, but
Okay.
only over a day.
Right.
So it does take time. And by the way, I have a tip for you because before the pandemic, I traveled a lot. See how little, when you're traveling, see how little sleep you can have on the plane. See if you can manage to stay awake depending on what time you land.
Hmm.
And that first morning, try to go out at something like a normal time, sometime between 6 and 10 in the morning, and go out. I used to be a runner, so I would run, but even if you go for a good brisk walk,
Hmm.
your brain starts to understand what time it's light, and that
Right.
will help the jet lag.
Wow, that's like a very good tip. Unfortunately, the problem is all the flights that go from the US, they land in India like late in the night, like 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. or like 1 a.m. or something.
Oh, no, that's perfect, because then you see if you can stay awake for the whole flight and go to sleep when you get there. And then when you get up in the morning, like it might be 10 or 12 when you get up because you're tired, but definitely go for a good brisk walk.
Yeah,
Your eyes and your brain understand when it's light out.
right.
And
The
then
problem is,
attempt,
yeah,
and then the next night, try to go to bed at a normal time, like 9, 10, 11 p.m. at the try, even 8 o'clock, because those
right.
first couple days can be very challenging.
Yes, for us, like what happens is because the flight itself is about 24 hours. So you have already spent 24 hours in the flight, and your like the sleep schedule already changes. Because basically
Yes,
when you fly from here, let's say you're flying on 25th of December, when you
yeah,
land in India, it will already be 27th of December. So one day has
yes,
already passed. So
yes.
already your things changes in the plane. So there is no way that you can not sleep in the plane because it's 24-hour flight.
It
And
that's true. That's
yeah,
true, but like
yeah,
just try to work your body so that you know when you arrive, you will be tired,
right.
because it's
Um,
definitely time to go to sleep. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. No, that's right.
it's tricky.
We have been doing this for several years so far, not have
That's
had very good.
but definitely the exercise will help you so much.
Right, right,
Try
right.
to get up in the morning, even if you feel terrible. Try to get up and get out and get some exercise
Yeah.
in the local light, because this is how we are as humans.
I mean,
We
luckily,
respond to the light.
yeah. When we basically land there in India, we don't feel sleepy at all, actually. So none of us feel sleepy. So we'll go there, we'll be awake since like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the night, and we'll be awake all the way till 5 p.m. So it's
Oh
almost
no.
like 17, 18 hours. And then you'll basically drop dead. That's how it happens. You never
Oh
feel sleepy.
no.
So
That's
that's how it is.
so hard.
Yeah. So if we sleep, then your logic would work because then, but somehow whenever we land in India,
Oh,
like
that's
2 a.m.,
funny.
we are like completely like, awake, like as a, I don't know, like an eagle or whatever you can call. Our eyes are like
Yeah.
completely awake. And so,
The other, this is so funny. I have also trained for jet lag.
yeah.
I haven't flown directly to India, but I have, so that must be what, 15, 16 hours time change plus a
Uh,
day.
12 and a half hours, kind of 11 and a half or 12 and a half from Pacific side.
Okay. Okay. So what you can do at home for a few days before is start getting up really early.
Yeah, that could also help. Yeah.
If you start getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
your body is already messed up
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
you arrive. It might
Absolutely.
work. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
But
this is good.
to
Right,
talk
right.
to you about what is it like when the light changes here,
Yeah.
because it's slow. I mean, here we probably, our day when it changes faster in the springtime and in the fall time, and it's a little bit slower right around the solstice. But we might have a difference in what time our sun rises, maybe 8 minutes a day, which is a lot, but it's easy for a body to understand. But here's what's really funny is the change in the light will naturally affect your energy levels. So in the summertime, it is very normal here. You hear it all the time that someone would go out and work in their garden at 11 or 12 o'clock at night or mow their lawn. And people will have their evening meal a little bit later, because it feels like the same time because the light is the same. So in the winter, maybe I'm hungry at 5:30 and that's what time I eat. In the summer, I might forget to have dinner until 8 or 8:30.
Right, right, right,
And in the winter, my husband and I have definitely noticed we sleep so much more. We're probably in bed 10 hours every night all winter. And then
right.
by the summertime,
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
it's very
yeah,
it's so interesting to watch how your body interacts with how much sun we have,
right, right. I
how
mean,
long the day is.
you might have heard about Seattle. So in the Seattle also, we get a lot of gray skies. I mean, for since pandemic, I think last 2, 3 years, things
Mhm.
have been changing. We are getting a lot more sun and a lot more rain than it used to, which is
Mhm.
in one way good because now a lot more sun is like good for Seattle because Seattle never used to
Mhm.
get very good sun. So we have
Mhm.
more, but then we are also getting more rain, which is not so good because we already used to get quite a bit of rain. So rain in the sense it never used to like rain profusely. It used to be drizzling quite a bit, but now
Mhm.
we get like really downpour actually, which was unusual for Seattle. So that
Mm.
changed, and then we have extreme temperatures now. So in winters it becomes extremely cold, like real cold.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they say, so we measure it in Fahrenheit here, and it goes to like 22, 23, 24, 25. And back in the day, it used to only go to whatever, like 30 or 32. That used to be the case. But
Mhm.
nowadays it goes to like 20s, and quite a few days it is in 20s. And in summers, it goes all the way to like almost 35 plus 40, which is like extremely hot for Seattle. So
Yes.
it's probably climate change or who knows what's going on. So it's
Yeah.
something
I
interesting.
I think so. I was in Vancouver for 10
Yeah.
years just before I moved north, and Vancouver and Seattle are
Same.
like
Yeah,
this, right?
same. Yeah, same.
And yes, we had the same, much hotter, and maybe you don't notice yet, but the trees are dying
Yeah. Yeah.
because the trees on the coast expect, they've grown up, they've established their roots
Yeah.
with rain all the time. Like in the summer, it always rains less, but they
Yeah.
never have to go too long without a good drink.
Yeah.
But now you'll notice this year again, by sometimes as early as late July, the leaves go yellow and they start to fall off.
I'll notice that. Like maybe it didn't occur to me, but maybe I'll check it. Yeah. Could be
Yeah.
possible, right?
Well,
Because
these are the kind of things that I look at. So you
yeah,
watch this year, and
sure.
I will tell you, when the first fall storm comes,
Hmm.
that's the one that will knock out all the power, because that's the very first one. The trees are weak because they've been so thirsty and stressed for a long time, and they will start to fall over and they'll take out the power lines.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So again, you'll see if there's a storm maybe in September,
Yeah.
definitely in October, the first ones, a branch will fall off or whole tree will fall down.
Wow, I didn't notice that. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I'll watch out this time around. So tell me a little
This
bit.
is what I look at. I can tell you stories about animals and plants all day because
Oh,
this is what I
excellent.
notice.
Excellent, excellent. So, do you have any pets or any animals or any birds that you like to keep, or like since you are so
Yeah.
much in?
Well, yes, I have a pet dog, and
Yeah.
he's 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 a lot of fun, and he's a bit loud. And I, before this interview, I had to put him in his cage because he was
Nice.
barking.
Barking.
But I'll tell you what is so wonderful. What I was watching this morning, we here's all the things I was noticing this morning. Spring is finally here up north.
Mhm.
The ice, right? I'm not a long way north. So the ice just came off the lake last week,
Oh, wow. Okay.
only last week. So that's a big change. And because I'm on a lake, the cycle is in the winter, the snow falls, it's on the mountains, and the ice forms, and then and the water slowly draws down. So it looks like the lake is full because the ice is there.
Hmm.
But in the spring, you can see the ice starts to melt. And right now I have a very, very large beach in front of my house,
Oh,
maybe 100 meters. It's
oh, really?
huge.
So
It's
you're right.
really huge. And every day I can see, especially if it's a warm day, the snow in the mountains melts and it comes down and it starts to fill the lake. So maybe it comes up 1 centimeter or 5 centimeters if it's very warm.
Hmm.
So this morning, I like to swim in my lake because I'm a little bit crazy. So I was walking across the beach, and there's so many flies because they're out. It's the spring, the sand is a bit damp. So they're everywhere. There's so many. And then I walked into the water and I could see the fish coming up to eat the flies.
Hmm.
These are
Oh,
not my pets, of course. And
yeah.
then we have these other birds called swallows, and they like to catch insects. And there's so many of them right now. They're everywhere. And we have a birdhouse outside, and the
Oh,
swallows have just come. They've started to build a nest inside. And this morning I was watching the lady swallow. She was sitting in the box with her head poking out. And her mate, her husband, was up on a wire and he was singing her a song.
oh, wow.
It
Okay,
was so beautiful.
right. And you said you are right by the lake. Your house is right by the lake. Is that how
Yes.
it's
Yes,
very
as they
awesome.
call it, waterfront property.
Waterfront
The
property.
water itself is probably 150 meters from the front of my house,
Hmm.
but there's nothing in front of me. We're on a hill.
Right.
I'll have to send you a photo of my view of my window.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Excellent. No, that's very good actually. So,
Mhm.
like when you were growing up, was your specific interest in nature and flora and fauna from the very starting? Were your parents into it, or did you acquire this kind of
Mm,
interest? Like, how did you develop interest in this area?
mm. Well, I always loved animals when I could. I'm a girl who could talk very, very early before I was 1 year old.
Yeah.
And so for my first birthday, I received or for birthday, Christmas, they're side by side, I received a kitten for a gift. And that's what I'd been asking for. I wanted a cat. And then the
Mm,
next year, I received a dog.
nice.
And I've seen pictures, family pictures, and I always had a dog on a leash. There was a cat, I always loved animals.
Oh, nice.
And you grow up here, again, when you're a kid, it's just how it
Normal.
is. So we had pets in the house, but it wasn't till I was older, especially the pandemic, made me so much more aware of what is exactly around here.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have noticed the birds 4 years ago,
Yeah, yeah,
not
singing.
like this.
Right, right. And they were always there. It's just that we didn't notice it at the time. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it was
really
it
cool.
was interesting during the pandemic. People, I never looked at birds. I was like, whatever, it's a thing that flies in the sky and who cares?
Yeah, yeah.
But I noticed so many people started talking about the birds that were close to their home. And they
Mm,
put bird feeders outside.
right,
And
right.
they talked about the robins, they talked about the hummingbirds
Yeah,
and all of these things because we couldn't go anywhere. So we're
yeah,
just looking out our windows to
yeah.
see what's here.
Yeah, no, this is true. I mean, I wanted to, share an episode as well. So India has a lot of pollution. So most of the times the air is so like unclean and like always dirty. The
Mhm,
AQI on a like in winter specifically
mhm,
goes up to like 400, 350, 500.
mhm.
And when I check AQI here in Seattle, it is like 30, 25, something like that, right? So it's
Yes,
no
yes,
comparison, like 10 times much worse. 30 20 times much worse in India, right?
yes.
The climate conditions are such, as well as just so much pollutants in the air. So during the lockdown, when they locked down for 3 months in India, there is a place known as Chandigarh, which is
Mhm,
probably like maybe 200 kilometers north of Delhi from where I originally am, which is capital of India.
mhm.
And then you have Himalayas in India, which are like
Yes,
maybe 300, 400 kilometers north of Chandigarh, and you could
yes.
never see Himalayas from Chandigarh because it's always polluted.
Mhm.
First time in the life of so many people, they were able to see Himalayan mountains from Chandigarh, right in the middle of the city, which was like breathtaking view. And people clicked the photographs and sent it, and that was possible because of zero, no pollution for those 3 months. And first time ever, people were able to see water in the river, which felt good because it was not colored black. Otherwise, the river that is Yamuna River that goes through Delhi, it's completely black, and there is a big stench that comes through it. It almost feels like somebody has put dye water, or I don't know, like what, how do I describe that water? It's like not water. Nothing is there. So
Right.
first time I saw fishes, first time they saw water that was sparkling and it was transparent in color, right? Otherwise they used to, and first time they were able to see Himalaya. So just when you were
Mhm.
sharing about like people started noticing birds. So those were some of the things that people started noticing in India. And we are back to the square one again. Now we don't notice anything because there is none. And another thing that I also, when I had my kid, he's now about 4+ right now. We had him in India, and then we brought him in here when he was 6 months. Um,
Yes.
and in India, we used to have sparrows when I was growing up, like small sparrows would come and they would chirp on the road. And somehow we lost the whole sparrow population, and we only have now pigeons and crows actually in India. So when we first came here, my kid started seeing that there were sparrows here, and he would ask, "What?" Because we used to show him in the picture that there used to be a sparrow. Now he was able to see actual sparrows here. So it's so. I am just recognizing the fact that you mentioned that we also noticed sparrows here, which we noticed it when I was growing up, but in my adulthood I never saw a sparrow in like Delhi and surrounding areas, and again saw it here in Seattle like area when we came back here. So that's pretty kind of interesting to like reconnect with the nature and the flora and fauna, which you generally don't care much about. Like I think COVID did
Exactly.
a lot of things for all of us, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is one of the wonderful things that came out of the pandemic. Maybe
Yeah,
people forgot now that it was exciting to see the sparrows. Maybe they forgot that it was exciting to see the Himalaya.
yeah,
But I hope not. I hope they remember
yeah.
we caused this, we do this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This is why it's important to conserve. This is why it's important to think about how can we change our fuel? How can we do things in a better way?
Yeah, no,
Because
no,
when we stopped for 3 months, nature came back. It wanted to come back.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it showed us a way that if we do conserve certain things, if we are careful about not polluting, etc., then there are certain changes that we can do. And nature can
Mhm.
reclaim a lot of things that we thought were not possible. It showed us a way. It's just up to our own foolishness that we, even after
Mhm.
things that are right on your face, we try to ignore it and don't care much about it, or just get too much buried down under our daily struggles that we forget about it. And again we are back to, like, at least in India, we're back to square one. Like
Mhm.
thing I'll become.
Well,
Yeah,
you just watch. In 20 years, people will say, "Oh, I remember during the pandemic." It'll
yeah,
be old people telling children,
mhm,
"Oh, I remember it was
yeah,
so hard. We were locked down. We couldn't go anywhere. But then we saw the mountains and we saw the
yeah,
birds and we saw
definitely.
the fish." And the children will just think, "Oh, old people, they make up stories."
Yeah, unless we record that into a like a video. So I had, so in the interest of time, just wanted to see, how does your schedule look like? Do you still have some time we can talk further, or would you like to wrap it up today?
Honestly, I don't have very long,
Sure.
but let's continue a little bit. I've got another maybe 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So that works
Because I
perfectly.
can tell you and I could talk all day about everything.
Absolutely. So we'll have to catch you up again. Now
Yeah.
that we got the introduction part done, we'll get into it. So I think what I also want to bring in, I think this brings in a very good point. So one aspect was a natural aspect, an ecology aspect that we were able to see in the pandemic. There was a human aspect also that I saw during the pandemic, with so much grief or loss of people, loved ones, etc. And me being an immigrant myself, and there were several other friends that I know of, and we have family in Canada too, actually in Toronto area. Actually, I have some brothers, and like his whole family lives there. Um, and the challenge that we saw was that a lot of people suffered back home in India, and we lost certain close relatives there. And because of all the lockdowns and all the travel restrictions and all, we couldn't travel at that time, right? So it also showed us, with all the money, all the resources, it became completely useless when we needed them the most. And when our families needed us most, we were not right by their side. Like, so I want to link it with something that you mentioned, that you're right by your mother right now, and it was about time, right? Even though she doesn't need it, but you wanted to be, it was the right time, right? We couldn't
Exactly.
do that at the time when they needed us. And that kind of, always pierces my heart, that we are working here, they're independent there, they're working, etc., but in the moments when they really struggled, when they did not know what to do, when no vaccine was working, they were like under like COVID, they were all infected by COVID, and like all that they were under like respiratory systems were there, etc. It was just horrible time. I'm talking about the Delta wave in like 2021 in like March, April time frame. And my wife, like if it were not for her, I don't know like how we would have saved the day, because she used to wake up the entire night on here in Seattle just to coordinate medicines and like hospitals and what for her
Wow.
parents back home in India. Of course, there
Wow.
are people who were helping their head, but you need somebody to like arrange everything and coordinate, right? Because you have to make decisions at the cracks. Okay, oh, the oxygen level is going down. Okay, do this. Something is
Yes.
like talking with 3, 4 different doctors. And I mean, for 1 month, she couldn't sleep. Like she didn't slept. And that tells me, right? So even though people are living far apart, the bonds are so strong in the heart that your locations don't matter. So even though physically she was not present in India, but she was always with them. And
Mhm.
if not for her, I think they wouldn't have been alive today. See, she actually literally saved them with her. Like, of
Mhm.
course, her other siblings and all helped and all. Like, I couldn't have done that because I could just see like how much pain she was in, and she was kind of organizing everything. And maybe this would be a topic I would like to discuss, maybe if you have
Mm.
time. That human cost of COVID, what did it teach us? Like, did it
Oh,
bring us together? Did we see suffering? What did we learn? What was the takeaway from that? I think maybe we'll have a very good discussion on that. Maybe you may have your own examples there
yeah.
which you can.
Well, I would love to talk about this one for about 45 minutes or 60
Yes.
minutes.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say that truly your wife is a hero. I know her a little bit the same way I know you, and
Yeah.
she's a very intelligent woman and obviously very hardworking, very committed, very loving
Yeah.
to be able to try so hard and work so hard.
Yeah.
And and these are some of the beautiful things again that came out of the pandemic
Yeah.
that thank God she was here where our internet is fast, where
Yeah.
she could access. Thank God we have technology so
Yeah.
that she could use WhatsApp, so that she could
Yeah.
use Zoom and Google and find so much information and be able to speak to several